and I bought 7 of those zebra printers for $560. I sold each one for about, I think I sold like 2 or 3 at $350 plus shipping, and then another 1 or 2 at $340, and I still have 3 left. I remember the cost per item, it was about like 25 cents, and I sold that one CD for $600, which was wild. I think the best flip that I've ever done was when I first started, and this is funny because it was right when I first started reselling.
What do you think the biggest risks are for an eBay flipper?
Biggest risk, I guess I would say...
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Before we get into all of the best strategies out there for making a flipping business, we just wanted to let you know that we have an app that helps flippers grow their businesses. Our app will send you notifications whenever the items you're after are posted on Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, or Craigslist. This way, you can always be first to buy the good deals and leave your competition in the dust. Not to mention, our app does inventory management, cross-listing, and has AI-powered scam detection. Just search Ivy Flip in the iOS App Store or the Google Play Store, or use the link in bio and try our app for 1 week completely free.
Welcome to another episode of the Couch Pod. Today I'm joined by Adam, who also runs the YouTube channel RibResells. Adam's been an electronics reseller for the past 5-6 years. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. If you could give our audience a little bit of an introduction, tell them about yourself, I think that would be a great place to start.
Thanks for having me, Charles. Yeah, so I've been a reseller on eBay for a little over 5 years. I actually started when I was in college because I was working retail job and I had to pay a bunch of my bills, had some things going on, and I actually started off selling some computer parts I had lying around on eBay. And I was like, okay, I think I looked up videos on how to ship something or something like that, and then I started getting a bunch of reselling content recommended to me, went down that whole rabbit hole, started reselling, and yeah, I kind of stopped for like a year or two, and I just picked it back up again in in March/April. So it's been doing pretty well. I've always wanted to make reselling content. I've been a YouTuber kind of in the YouTube space since I was like 11 years old. I grew up watching all gaming content, Minecraft, gaming YouTubers. I guess that's what it started off, and made my own. I had a separate channel, like a gaming channel, that I probably still plan to make content on, but yeah, so right now I've been uploading it like once or twice a week on my channel, and it's been great. I guess it's other than that, I'm based out of Florida, so South Florida, but that's kind of my whole reselling.
Thank you for that background. Right now, reselling is a side hustle for you, and you work a full-time job. Definitely. So how many hours a week do you think you spend on your reselling side hustle versus obviously your full-time employment?
So thankfully, I have a pretty flexible full-time job. I work, I would say, like 90% of the time remote. So that's about 40 hours. And then reselling, I would say, I actually thought about it the other day, 20 hours a week. And that's mainly because I say I would spend 1 to 2 hours per day listing, and not every day, only Monday through Fridays. And so that, let's say it was 2 hours, that would be 2 times 5, that's 10, and then maybe another 10 hours in the week for sourcing. I maybe would source I source kind of weirdly. I mainly source off Facebook, so if I go and buy something off Facebook, that might take an hour or even less sometimes. And I've started to go to thrift stores a little bit more, mainly for content and just for enjoyment. I actually do like sourcing from there. You can find some good stuff, but primarily I've been kind of building up a contact list, and so that's shortened the time that I've been able to spend on it. So I would say about 20 hours.
Amazing. And how much do you make in an average month spending 20 hours a week on your side hustle?
The numbers are a little iffy right now because I just started, like I said, in March. So in March, I had made, I think, 800 in sales and like 500 after fees. I'm not sure. I wasn't keeping track how much I spent that month. April, I did just about 5,000 in gross sales, and I have it here somewhere, 4,200 after fees. My bad, 3,200 after fees. But I spent little over 2,000, probably 2,500. Last month, I bought a lot of inventory. And then this month, it's going to be a little more offset because I haven't bought as much, and I've sold around 4,000. So I would say going forward, it would definitely be 4,000 to 5,000 gross sales. And I'm pretty sure on average, based on my profit margin, it would be at least half of that. So my goal is 2,000 profit per month for like part-time.
Not so bad for something you're doing part-time and that you enjoy the process of.
Right.
So tell me about the kinds of things that you flip. Obviously, you have a focus on electronics. Like why electronics? And if you could share a little bit about this niche specifically.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know you've done couch flipping content. I've actually never. I mean, I've heard about it, but I never really delved deeper into that. It's pretty interesting. I guess I've just always loved electronics. I would always, I mean, I guess I say I would recommend, but I learned this from other people online, but it's always recommended to start with something that you enjoy reselling and then kind of branch out from there, or that you enjoy that you would resell. And as far as what I say, it's kind of all over the place. I think right now it's a little more niche. Lately I've been having a lot of label printers, anything like computer based. Like I have like these tablet computers that I bought a lot of. I'm starting to branch out a little bit into toys and plush like in the past week or two because my girlfriend loves plush. So I was like, oh, like they have a bunch of good plush at thrift stores and I know that there's some money to be made in them. So I picked up a couple of those. But yeah, primarily electronics. I've been selling a lot of webcams, headsets, mice. So I guess general like smaller electronic. Yeah, I guess that's an important. No, I don't really sell larger electronics. I used to sell, when I first started, a lot of like bigger things like maybe receivers and DVD, VHS players and heavier things. But when it comes to space and testing and all that, the smaller, the lighter, and the more it costs, the better.
Yeah, there's like a sweet spot there, right? Between how heavy an item is and your ability to ship it, and then the margin that's baked into that item as well. So
right.
It's an interesting game to try and figure out when you're trying to sell on eBay.
Definitely. Yeah, I would say that's probably the most like, I feel like sometimes when I read people's comments online, they might struggle with that. I know people make tons of money with clothes, and that's great. Me, I've never really even grown up like being into fashion or like knowing that much about clothes, so I've never like resold that. But in my opinion, it seems like a little more hassle than for what it's worth, for just compared to like electronics or things that have like a model number. I know with clothing you might have to wash it, you have to measure it out more. I think there's a little higher return rate for clothing, but it's also great for like storage. It has its benefits, but there's certain things that I think people need to kind of navigate when they first start and figure out what they like to resell, but also like, yeah, what's really worth it, because they might have a certain idea of what it is and it's not, you know, they're not tracking how much they're spending and making, and that
yeah, absolutely
too much.
They call them death piles, right? When you when you buy a bunch of stuff with the purpose of reselling, but then you like never get around to it, or you can't like load some of those items, and that death pile just keeps building and building. And yeah, I've heard a lot of comments about that as people try to get into reselling.
Yeah, I guess the idea, I mean, I've always had, I guess, like a little bit of I have like a nice little box of, it's actually just one. I have a bunch of these, you know, the business phones, like the voice over internet protocol phones. I have those sitting around because I just haven't, there's just a bunch of them, but I try not to keep a death pile too much. I think I guess little trick there is, well, one, I don't have a whole lot of space right now, so I'm pretty much forced to really list it to create space to make more. But yeah, just over time, getting things that you know you're very confident in will sell, checking the sell-through rate. That's actually something I never really calculated like that before until this past couple months. I mean, I always would check the solds, right, and see about how many sold, like let's say in the past week. So I wouldn't compare it to how many active listings there were, but in my head I always looked at, okay, there's like 3 that sold today, or there's like 10 of these items that sold in one day. I know that this is selling it pretty well. But I will say actually checking both and calculating the sell-through rate will help a lot with that, and that's definitely been helping me. I actually learned that through someone you had on here, Justin Resells. He has really good content. Learned a lot from him as well.
And he has a software out for resellers too, to help them track their financials. So
he does. I actually just paid for it.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, I just paid for it maybe a month ago. I'm still in the process of putting everything in because it's kind of a lot, but I know that once I do it, it's going to be super helpful. So yeah, really cool stuff he's doing.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's very important for flippers to be on top of their numbers. I always encourage flippers that we work with through the app to be tracking their sales, because, you know, like if you don't know your numbers, then you don't know where you have leverage or like opportunities in the business. And ultimately you don't know, like, if you wanted to scale up and do better, like how to do that. You know, like I think people sort of have an intuition or maybe a general sense, just like, you know, operating and existing in the business, but having like clarity on your numbers can give you some real focus in understanding your opportunities.
I have more of an idea now. I'm definitely trying to get like kind of, that's why I've got Justin's, I guess Flipwise is called, his app. And that, and then I also do my own separate bookkeeping on Excel. So it's just, you know, I don't have as much time right now, so it's kind of hard to get everything in there. But yeah, I want to know it off just the top of my head. I think it's, yeah, it's very useful.
How many items do you have listed right now?
I have about, I can tell exactly, a little over 300. I have 315.
How many sales do you make in an average day?
An average day will depend. I'd say anywhere on like a lower day to 1 to 3, and on a higher day would be like 5 to 7. So I guess 3 to 7 right now. When I was reselling kind of like full time in college, I would get close to 10 items per day. But I also sell, my average sale price per item is much higher than what it used to be. So I don't need to sell as many per day as would have prior.
I see. It kind of works out. You're making around 3 to 7 sales a day, but at a higher profit margin. What is your average profit per flip after everything is taken into account?
Or like margin, or like the actual dollar amount, I don't know entirely, but I would say the average probably around 50%, or maybe a bit more. I don't buy anything that I can't get at least 100% markup on, which usually will give me at least 50% profit on that sale. My average sale price is around, this month, $71 per item. I think last month it was 77. Still working on like all the hardcore numbers.
That's pretty good. And, $71 per item is, I think, a pretty healthy place to be at, especially when because you could be flipping things for like $20-30 on eBay, right? But
right,
you'd really have to be doing some volume to make that worth your time.
Right. I mean, I love those items too. I think the best advice is to have a mix of that, right? Like you kind of have your like bread and butter items, like let's say $20 to $30 range, and then you have like, now I would say I have items that are the $1 to like $500 range, and then I have a good amount around the $20 to $30 range. I used to, back when shipping was way cheaper, probably do a whole podcast about this, but I used to sell things for $10, even under $10. Some people still do it. I'm not sure why or how they do that, because it just doesn't seem profitable for me, because shipping is at least $4 on a lighter item or media mail. So that would have already like cut everything in half plus the fees. But I try to now, like the lowest item I would flip would be $15, I think. Probably moving closer to that 20.
Could you tell us a little bit about your sourcing process? So you said you were doing a lot of things on Facebook Marketplace. Right. It's actually not something I hear from a ton of eBay flippers. Like most of them are going to brick and mortar, or maybe they're even sourcing online. So explain that to us.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I've always used Facebook Marketplace, even when I first started to resell. But I think the reason I'm finding much better luck with it here is because I am in a bigger metropolitan area. So I think there's just way more opportunity here. So that could be a factor. But I actually primarily source on there. And what's kind of happened, maybe stroke of luck, I don't know, is that I've been able to find, I use the word supplier, but not in the sense where they're like an official licensed supplier where they move like millions of dollars of inventory, but people that I can buy from pretty consistently from. There's one person I buy from that he's an Amazon seller actually, and he sells wholesale. He does maybe like 50 or 100K a month. So I buy from him like right now, just like these big boxes, because I don't have the space and capital, but eventually I'll probably start buying like pallets or bigger things from him. There's another person that's more local, which is pretty interesting, and he works for a local pretty big airline. I won't say the name, and he gets all of their recycled electronics, and they just give it to him to like throw away or recycle. And being the hustler that he is, as all my Cubans out there are, and a lot of other cultures as well, he just sells it on Facebook. And so that's actually, I think I have on my channel, like my first video, like best flip of my life, that is not clickbait. I got a bunch of good stuff from him for about, I think I spent like around $1,000. Yeah, around 1,000. And I got a bunch of good stuff. Anyways, all that is to say that, I've, obviously I'll make like the one-time flips off Facebook and buy something for $20, sell it for 100. But I've actually been kind of coming at it with a different mindset of really trying to establish connections with people and, ask them, hey, do you have anything else? Do you have more of this? Let me know. Here's my number. Like being more proactive about that. And it actually just worked yesterday. I bought a printer off someone, and he also has like a little warehouse, and he has like switches and routers and all types of like IT equipment. So that should be pretty interesting. And then I also do go to thrift stores now. I've actually been, funny enough, I always talk down on Goodwill. I know there's that whole side of the community, but I mean, I've found a lot of good things at Goodwill stores, but I thought the area that I was in, which is kind of a different topic, wasn't as good for thrift stores or for Goodwills. And then I started looking for different things, and I actually found a lot. So I do go to thrift stores maybe once or twice a week. I'll go to like 1 or 2 stores, not a lot. But primarily Facebook Marketplace. Trying to think online, not yet. I do want to maybe get into like buying kind of more in bulk, maybe surplus auctions or other things like that. But I actually just incorporated not too long ago, and I believe for some of those sites you need to have an EIN and organized shipping and all that. So it's a little more time intensive than.
It sounds like sourcing is probably the area in your business where you spend the most time and is one of the most important in order to lift your average sales.
Definitely. Yeah, I would say, I guess when I said the 20 hours, I didn't factor in like how much I'm looking, but that's not that much either. What I would recommend people to do, and I've said this in my videos before, I'm sure a lot of people are trying to cut down on their social media habits, right? They're scrolling on TikTok, scrolling here or there. I would recommend is scroll on Facebook Marketplace or scroll on OfferUp, whatever you want to use to source. Maybe you source off eBay. I know people snipe stuff on eBay. I haven't tried that, but I just do that. I'm on the toilet, I'll scroll. If I'm waiting in an office, I'm just always looking at stuff on Facebook. Some days I'll chill out on it because I can burn myself out. I do kind of have the tendency to go a little into things, which can help with business, but can also double-edged sword. But yeah, I would just recommend, just instead of scrolling on TikTok for an hour, maybe cut that in half and scroll on Facebook, and you'd be surprised. You'd find things.
Make it more productive instead.
Right. Exactly.
And Adam, actually, I should talk to you about some of the features of our app. I didn't realize you source on Facebook Marketplace. Mm-hmm. What the IV Flip app does is we scrape listing data from Facebook, OfferUp, and Craigslist. And whenever something is posted that matches your criteria, we send you an instant alert. So this completely eliminates the need for doom scrolling on these marketplaces looking for deals. Like, you kind of set up your parameters around deals that you're interested in. And then whenever they pop up, boom, we send you a push notification. It appears in your feed. And then you have all the information all in one place where you can make an assessment. Do I want to purchase this item or not? And then we take you to the marketplace to message and communicate with the seller.
That's great. That's awesome. Because I could be missing out on Craigslist or other platforms. That's I'll definitely look into that. I'll download it right after this.
Yeah. So, it helps keep you organized, make sure you're not missing deals because, you're not on your phone. And then the best deals tend to move quickly, right? Like if someone has like a electronic and it's worth $200 and they're selling it for 10 because they got to get it out of their house, like that's going to move very quick. And so we get you there first. So if you're ever interested, I would love to get you set up with a free trial and then kind of see where things go.
Sure. Yeah, I'm definitely interested. That sounds great. I actually found out about something kind of similar for retail arbitrage, like for Walmart. Don't know what it was called, but yeah, that seems very useful. Getting like a notification when something goes on clearance, or like in your case, when something gets listed. That's a lot of the time. Maybe I could bring that 20 down to 15 hours or 10. I don't know. It could help a lot.
Absolutely. What's this product for retail arbitrage? Like it alerts you when prices drop on.
Yes, I watched a video on it. I don't remember. It's actually like a Discord community, weirdly enough, which is interesting. And I guess they have some type of script on there that that sends out, like let's say Walmart puts something on clearance, right? Like a certain video game or something. Then they'll in that group will, like, I don't know how they source that information, if it's other people reporting it or if maybe they get it through some type of way, like online, if Walmart marks something down, and I don't know. And yeah, they just alert you in this Discord group and you can just go over there and find it if it's in your area. It's not guaranteed. Actually, on that, because I watched that video, I was like, oh, I've heard of people buying stuff from Walmart, from Target, TJ Maxx, and flipping it. I never really thought about it too much because I kind of envisioned that more of an Amazon type of thing. Because all the people I used to watch that did that sold on Amazon. But I was actually at Walmart yesterday and I did find 3 things to flip. So that's another source that I'm going to start utilizing, is Walmart or bigger retailer stores. TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Ross, those stores can be pretty good too. I think that server deals with all of that as well.
Got it. And just for clarity for our audience, when you're sourcing things, you're looking for like the brand and the model and maybe even like a SKU, right? And then you're cross-referencing that against what those items are selling for on eBay currently.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So that's why I like electronics. It's much easier in my opinion. There's usually barcodes, there's usually a model number, and you can use the name. So there's a lot of information to go off of to source and look things up. And then, yeah, you would go on eBay, or I guess if you have the Amazon seller app, and you would check the comps, which I believe stands for completed listings, but basically just what's sold. And then I guess the next step would be to see how many have sold compared to how many have been listed, which would be the sell-through rate. and eBay gives you data for the past 90 days, so you can kind of figure out how many items have sold in the past 90 days or each day. Yeah, I mean, I don't go that deep into it, like when in the moment. It depends. If it's something that's maybe seems a bit riskier, if it's really expensive, I'll spend a bit more time. But I think over time, as you resell more, you kind of just get that intuition a bit where, sometimes you have to make a quicker decision. Maybe you're at a garage sale, or, you can't really look something up, or maybe you have little time. So you can just, over time, I feel like if you just get into the habit of checking and just scanning everything, I would say scan everything, look everything up. That's what I did in the beginning. And I think that's kind of the maybe harder part when you're first starting out. Sometimes I'll tell friends about what I'm doing, or they'll ask me and they're like, oh yeah, that seems great. They get excited. And I don't think people realize how much initial, just like with any business, right? Like there's a huge initial startup learning curve. And for other businesses, especially like startup costs as well. It could be the case for reselling, but it tends to be, that's why a lot of people do it, because it has a low startup cost. But still, there's a lot of like time and energy. When I first started, I watched, kid you not, I am a person that like really can delve into something when I'm really into it, but I would watch reselling videos like every day for hours. Like I was like addicted to it. I thought it was like the most interesting thing in the world. And I did that for like a couple months, I think. Maybe not for like hours, for like for the first month, definitely. But then after that, like still watching it a lot. And obviously going out and sourcing is the best way to learn. But I've learned a lot through YouTube and online resources for a lot of things. But
yeah, at a certain point, when you've done enough flips within your niche, it becomes second nature, right? You kind of have a feel or a gist of like what the value of items are on eBay. And so when you're like scanning nowadays, like you're literally scanning the barcode using the eBay app. It pulls up the item on eBay. You can look through the comps, figure out the sell-through rate, and you're looking for at least 100% markup. So if you can buy it for 35, like then you want to see that it's selling. Completed sales have been happening for around $70 at least.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that would be, in my opinion, that's kind of like the minimum percentage for me, like the minimum threshold. Like if I can at least 2, 3, 4x my money, that's obviously most ideal. And then that also highly depends on the sell-through rate. So of course, if I can, even if it's under 100%, let's say it's like 70%, but it's going to sell in a day or a couple days, I'll most likely pick it up, assuming it doesn't take up a lot of space or anything. Or to add on to that, maybe it takes a little longer to sell, but it's a really good deal and it's smaller, so I can store more of it, or it just wouldn't take up that much space. So there's a lot of like little factors like that it just depends on your, I don't know if I would say business model, but your actual like storage space. Like in my case, I have to be very strict with what I get. I've always kind of preferred smaller and lighter weight items, but even more so right now, until I maybe get a small little office or get a bigger place.
What do you think the biggest risks are for an eBay flipper?
Biggest risk, I guess I would say time associated with like sourcing and a death pile. And what I mean by that is, maybe when you're first starting out, or even now, you might buy things that don't sell, or you might spend money on something that you thought would be worth something and it doesn't. I mean, I don't know. I don't run into that a whole lot. Definitely when I first started, much more. I mean, like with any business, anything that you're purchasing, it could not work. I guess for me, particularly with electronics, it would be something not working, and that would obviously lead to me losing out on potential money or like time wasted, because usually if I'm buying something, it's at a really good price. So even if it's not working, I could most likely sell it for parts, or I just eat the cost. It's $10 maybe, or less, or a little. So yeah, I guess I would say a bit of money and just time, because it does take a lot of time to source, and especially if you're doing it full time or you're just starting out, you're not gonna be as efficient as me or someone that's been reselling even longer than me. Yeah, I guess like also maybe spending all that time and not seeing. I know people complain not seeing as much of a return, or they're not selling things, they don't really get it. Like that, I guess, would be the biggest risk of like it not living up to what you think it could be.
I guess with electronics, you have this risk that items break, or after they're sent that they stop working. Do you ever get returns?
Oh, definitely. I actually got 2 returns recently, but I think in the past couple months I've only gotten those 2, maybe one more, a couple. I don't get too many. I do test everything. If I don't put it in the listing, or I'll at least say it in the in the description, but I'll mostly always sell it for parts. Now what I do if something's not completely working, I'll actually try to sell it on Facebook or even donate it. I donate a lot of things as well. So I'd have to look at my return rate, but yeah, I don't think it's maybe once per month. I'm sure as I sell more in volume, it'll increase, but 1 out of 50 or 100 sales, I'm not sure.
What was your best flip this year?
I'll think about it as I'm telling this story, but I think the best flip that I've ever done was when I first started. And this is funny because it was right when I first started reselling. I bought a CD collection off of Facebook. Funny enough, there you go. And I think I spent $100, maybe a little under $100, and it was like a couple hundred CDs. I'm scanning all of them. Each one, I'm like, okay, this one's like $5, $3, like nothing. I scanned this one CD. I still remember like the name of it. It is, do you know Time Life, the company Time Life? But they make a lot of special edition things. So like, let's say there's a year, like the Olympics was one year, then they'll make like, oh, this CD, like 2005, like rock and roll CD for like the Olympics. Like they kind of make like these specialized type of like themed media pieces. And anyways, I found one in that lot that I bought. It was a rock and roll instrumental CD from the 50s rock and roll instrumental CD. And, I paid like $100 maybe or less for the whole lot. I remember the cost per item, it was about like 25 cents. I remember doing the math. And I sold that one CD for $600, which was wild. At the time for me, I was like insane. I would say in terms of like just pure profit, like I guess technically that would be like 25 cents for that one item to like 600 is just insane. I guess recently I've sold a couple of things for around $500 that I've paid 70 or 100. I actually found something, it hasn't sold yet, but I found I'm not sure if you know, I didn't know anything about this, but it's I guess one of the first scientific calculators / computers. And I picked that up for $5. And I think I see it sold for like $450. They had it listed for $1,000. One sold, and they took an offer for $450. So I have some views on it right now for like 800. So I'm gonna keep bringing it down. But even if I sell that for 500, I would say that would be like my best recent flip in terms of profit.
Yeah, I guess even just like your top flips doesn't have to be a specific one, but I think it's a great topic for people to understand, like where are the money makers? What should I be, looking out for?
Right. I would say, okay, there was one I sold a Cisco firewall. I'm not sure. It sounds like you have some IT knowledge. Cisco, for people that don't know, is a large company that produces pretty much, I would say, like the top in like networking equipment. So firewalls, routers, switches, thinking if I'm missing anything else. And I got this firewall, part of a bigger lot from this person I found on Facebook. I bought firewall from them. I bought these handheld tablet computers, like the size of your phone. And actually those I'm looking to sell for around like 700 to 1,000. And I got those for 70 a piece. The firewall I got for 80 and I sold it for 450. The best flip recently, it's more than one item, but it's the same item. I've got 7 Zebra label printers. So anyone that's in reselling, I'm sure if you don't have one, you've heard of the 4x6 inch labels that I would highly recommend you to start using. You get a label printer. And Zebra is like one of the top brands. So I have actually a Dymo 4XL, and there's Dymo, there's Rollo printer, and Zebra, I would say, are like the top 3. And I bought 7 of those Zebra printers for $560. I sold each one for about, I think I sold like 2 or 3 at $350 plus shipping, and then another 1 or 2 at $330 or $340, and I still have 3 left. So on that whole deal, I spent $560 to gross 2 or 3,000. I'm not sure on the math right now, but a couple thousand. So that would be like my best flip recently.
That's great. Yeah. Where'd you find those?
Facebook Marketplace. So the same one guy I spent. That's when I said earlier that I spent like around $1,000 for everything. I bought. Actually, that was like, it's the same guy, but it was a separate day. But I bet I actually spent like $1,500 with him. So I spent like $1,000 on a bunch of these like like actual tablet, rugged tablet computers, then these handheld tablet computers, firewall, and some other things I'm forgetting. And then I think the next day I actually went back to him. I was like, hey, I was missing the adapter for the firewall. And he was like, yeah, you can come over and come and get it. I was like, okay, cool. I go there. And I see just a stack of these Zebra printers in his house. And I'm like, oh, are you selling that? Like, of course he's selling it. And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, and he only speaks Spanish. And I was talking to him in Spanish, and he's really nice. He basically, because he gets it, like I said, he gets it from his job, literally free. He just sells it for like 50% of the markup or whatever it is. And so, to be honest, I was assuming based on the solds, it was going to sell for around 300. But yeah, it came out to I think 80 a piece is what I paid for those label printers. Anyways, I'm kind of getting into it, but yeah, that was same guy, just one guy on Facebook, and I actually messaged him the other day, see if he has anything else. Doesn't right now. He has some like monitor stands, but I'm not interested. Everything good that I've been finding lately has been off of Facebook, and I mean, I found some pretty good items. Like that scientific vintage calculator. It's called, for anyone that wants to look at it, it's called CompuCorp. So look out for that brand, I guess. It's like one of the first scientific calculator computers that came out, and you can like plug it into, I think, like a monitor, and like it interfaces with other technology apparently. And yeah, and then I guess the tablet computers that I was talking about before. So there are these like rectangular tablets. Those were the brand Getac, so Getac. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Those are pretty good. He actually gave those to me for 20 a piece, and only so that's a case where not all of them were working. That's why he sold it to me for cheap, but 3 of them are working completely, and I'm selling for about $250 a piece. So I paid $160 for 10 tablets. So it's 20 a piece because I paid for 8, and then he threw in 2 extras, so it's $160 for that. So I guess 16 a piece, my bad. And yeah, and then I allotted the other ones that aren't working in a lot. So another side tip there. If you're not sure, a lot of times you try to think outside of the box, try to like part something out. Maybe you buy like a food processor. That's really good. Part out the blade, part out the pitcher, the filter, or a juicer. Like there's a bunch of things. I used to sell vacuum parts to Dyson vacuums. I would go to like the Goodwill outlet bins, and I would go in there with like a screwdriver and everything, and they didn't care. I would just take it apart and take the good parts and throw it back in. So that could be maybe, I don't know if that's like a moral thing, but I guess some people might want a whole vacuum, but usually people aren't really looking at it. Yeah, I would say part things out, or on the opposite end, lot things together as well. You could sell quicker, and just sell in general. It might be something that wouldn't have sold if you didn't do that. So
yeah, the parting thing is really interesting. Like some items will have more value if you just sell the components as opposed to the item itself. Vacuums does seem to be like a really good area for that, because people will have a vacuum forever and continue to get repairs on it. And they obviously need parts for that. I've seen vacuum stores offer those kinds of repairs as well. What are some of the top items that you would buy for parting? Yeah.
I don't do too much of that anymore, but obviously if I see these things, I'll still look out for it. So I would say vacuums, number one. I guess obviously everyone knows about Dyson. A vacuum that you should really look out for that I didn't know too much about is called Rainbow, brand Rainbow. They make vacuums that basically janitors would use, or like a commercial is the word I'm looking for, kind of commercial style vacuums, and they can go for hundreds of dollars. And it's called a canister vacuum, so they're like canister, and they're on wheels, and they have like a hose attached to it. And then you have, the normal stand-up vacuums as well that you can part out. But those 2 brands, Dyson, Rainbow, I'm sure like there's some Shark vacuums that could be worth it. Vintage vacuums, there's a brand called Kirby. It looks really cool. It's very heavy. Those can be worth some money, but they're a little heavier. I remember I parted one out and it kind of sat there for a while, but that might have just been the exact model. So I would still look out for that Kirby. In terms of parting out, the vacuum head, I think it's what it's called, is usually worth the most. And then sometimes like the canisters that you can take out, sometimes even like you'd be surprised, like not like a normal screw or bolt. Sometimes they'll have a type of proprietary latch or something like that where people need the replacement for just like that piece, like that. What I would do, just to not overwhelm people, just look for, let's say you find the vacuum, and just look up what's sold for parts, and then you'll see what exactly those parts are, right? So like you'll see if they sold the wheels for this or whatever, and then you can just go from there and figure out what's worth it, what actually is selling. Other than vacuums, I would say food processors or juicers or coffee. I haven't done too much of coffee makers, but I know that people do that. So those kind of like smaller kitchen appliances, you would call it. Food processor, the blades for food processors can usually be anywhere from like 10 to 15 bucks to like 20, 30, maybe 40, or just blades for maybe for a blender. Ninja is good. Vitamix is good. I'm trying to think. Oscar with a K can be pretty good. It's a more recent brand, but the vintage Oscar processors can be good. Yeah, coffee makers, like I said. I'm trying to think what else you could part out. Yeah, I mean, I would say any smaller like household. It seems to be the trend, like a lot of like household kind of electronics and like small appliances part it out, because they usually have parts that people need that break or that they lose. And if you could just think of anything that people might lose, or maybe that you yourself have lost, then I would think about it to resell.
Or components that, get worn down over time, like these food processor blades, etc. It does seem to be a little bit more of a complicated process to part out and sell an item because you can't scan the part. So how do you tell where there's value in these items?
What I would do is, okay, I guess if you just found the parts and you didn't know the brand or anything, kind of out of luck there, maybe you could use the eBay image search and find it that way. Some of the higher end Cuisinart, I can't believe I forgot that. Cuisinart is great for that, for the food processors. Cuisinart, I know, has an actual model number on the food processor blade, so you could look that up. Me, since I've sold them before, I kind of know how it looks. I think they also put their brand name on it, but some of the other ones don't. So in my eyes, if you're parting something out, you already see the entire item first, right? So you'll be able to see the model number, then you look that up first. And then, like I said, you filter in the sold, and then you filter for parts. And then also make a separate search of, like, let's say Dyson vacuum DC28 parts. Like in the actual search, you put the word parts, and sometimes that comes up a little differently. And yeah, then you just check the solds and see what people are selling. That's how I would determine what's worth it. I mean, I've sold, like I said, like a latch for something, the head of a vacuum, the blades. I'd say those were like the most common things that sell. I mean, just like anything else, you would check the solds. If you can't find the original item, and you just see the part, like there's been times where I'll know it's like a food processor or some type of other unit, and I'm like, I know this thing looks like it's worth money, but there's no brand name, there's nothing. And, time is money. So I'm not going to spend 30 minutes trying to figure it out when coder couldn't be worth something. Just got to play that deciding game.
Really interesting. And what are some examples of things that you've lotted together? And what is lotting?
Right. So lotting together is just the concept of, lotting together, putting together, I should say, items that are the exact same, or that are similar. So for example, I don't do this as much. I would recommend this for people maybe starting out because it's a little easier to do. It's not as profitable, but it could still be good to get you some sales if you're trying to build up your reviews. You can put together DVDs. So let's say you have, I actually have a Nickelodeon DVD lot that, funny enough, sold twice to the same person. They didn't pay twice. So now I blocked them because it's not going to sell to them. And I would just, I lotted it up by the channel, which would be Nickelodeon. You could do Disney movie DVD lots. And yeah, the idea is that usually in this particular case, they're not really worth that much on their own. So like the DVDs I'm lotting up, let's say it's like Dora and like SpongeBob and all these, like there probably are some out there that are worth it just by themselves, but most of them aren't. So by lotting it together, you can sell, let's say, 50 DVDs for $70 or something, or $60. And media mail shipping, for those who don't know, is much cheaper than other shipping rates. And so that's another good thing about lotting up media. You could do the same with CDs, rock CDs, metal CDs. You could do the same. Right now, I've actually been lotting up webcams because I've been buying from this one person that has sold me a lot of Microsoft webcams. The way I actually thought of lotting that up is because I listed it just by itself and I put the quantity. I had like 30 of them, and someone reached out to me on eBay and they were like, hey, or I think he sent me an offer. He wanted to buy all of them. And I was like, that's way quicker for me. And obviously I took less money than if I would have sold them all individually, but I sold it way quicker, which in my opinion is more important in reselling. Is obviously still making a profit, but like if you could take 20-30% less and still make good money but sell it quicker, you should do it like every time. And in that case, I sold it for $350 for like 20 something webcams. And if I had sold it individually, I would have made like $540, I think, before fees. A good amount less, but again, way quicker. So that's something I've lotted recently, is our webcams. You could do it with pretty much anything. Yeah, anything that's the same, or anything that is of kind of lesser value, that if you put it together, it would be greater. The only thing I wouldn't recommend doing that with is just like heavier items or bulky items. It works better with like media, or in this case, webcams are smaller, just so you don't have to ship something that's really heavy and risk it.
Yeah. So anything that could potentially offer more value to the user when grouped together, like there's a family, they just had a child, and they need like media to entertain the child. Let's buy the entire Nickelodeon collection. And the guy with the webcam probably has an office that he's trying to outfit, right? He's like, he needs to get his employees some webcams. Like, why else would you need 30 webcams? So any use cases like that might be interesting to think about and create lots for. And I think you made a really interesting point about just sell through. And in the couch flipping world, we call it turnover, or just like sales velocity, right? Whatever you want to term it, but your ability to get your hands on an item, get it listed quickly, and then sell it is really the leading indicator of whether or not you have a healthy reselling business. You don't want to necessarily buy something and sit on it for 2 months just to get that like amazing price point. It's much better 90% of the time, discount it a little bit, price more appropriately, and get that thing out of your house in like, I would say less than 7 days.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, if you could sell even half of the items you have listed, that's still asking a lot. But even half in 7 days, you'd be doing really well. And I'm sure you tell me more about couch flipping. I'm curious, but I'm sure that's even more the case with couches because they're so big. Like you don't want that sitting around unless you have maybe a big warehouse. But yeah, did you do couch flipping before, or like how did you get into that? Or
yeah, so we had a company where we were offering loans to gig workers like Uber drivers, DoorDash delivery people, etc. Eventually, we had to pivot away from it. But one thing we realized is a lot of these gig workers didn't even have $500 in savings. So we're like, yeah, we can give you a better interest rate on a loan, but is that really solving the problem? And so we were thinking like, what are some ways that we could help people make money? And we started researching side hustles, and we came across couch flipping, and we talked to a couple of couch flippers like, how could we help you make more money? And a lot of them said the same thing. If I could find more couches, I could make more money. And we're like, I think we might be able to help you with that. So we created our product. We launched it 2 weeks later. And then we had our first couple customers, and we're like, I think we're onto something. And a year and a half later, here we are. But yeah, absolutely. With couches in particular, they take up a lot of space. Most of our customers are dealing in like sectionals. So imagine you have like a 10 by 20 unit. You can fit maybe like 10 couches in there. You pay, I don't know, depending on your area, $400, $500 for storage. So every couch you don't move is literally costing you $50 a month, something like that. For them, there's like a much heavier cost of storage because these are big bulky items that most eBay flippers, I'm going to assume, are not feeling that pain. But even so, like just being able to turn over items quickly is important for any selling business, even without the cost of storage. And just because you get to move on to new opportunities, you get money coming into the business, and then learn from every flip. Money, like a bird in the hand, is better than two in the bush.
If you're starting out too, then like reviews are super important. So I would say that's even more important starting out. So like you said, getting that experience of like shipping items, getting your reviews up, figuring out what sells, what doesn't, and just having that cash flow to be able to buy more and flip. That's definitely, I would say, recommend even more trying to discount things in the beginning, because I think they don't think of that in the beginning. Like now I know to do that, and that's like kind of the meta's the word, but that's kind of like the practice. But I think in the beginning, people might try to, they get so associated with the numbers, like, oh, but like if I just wait a little more, I could a little more. But
hey, well, Adam, we're coming up on the hour here. Thank you so much for jumping on the Couch Pod. I think our audience is going to get a lot of value out of this. Taught us many interesting things to flip, where to look for them, and how to make some money on eBay. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to see you on a future episode of the pod.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'd love to be back. Thank you, everyone.